Welcome to the Bright Ideas Podcast.
Hey, John, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Oh, it's terrific to be here. Thanks for having me today.
No problem. Thank you very much for making some time. So for the folks who aren't yet familiar with your company or you, let's start there. What's Thrasio do and who are you in with respect to Thrasio?
Sure. Yeah. I've done this so many times. I think I could do it in my sleep, but it always comes out a little bit different because I can't even make a sandwich the same way twice. So what we are is on the highest level, we're the fastest profitable company in American history to reach the unicorn status. And what we basically do is we buy third-party Amazon businesses, and we not only buy them, but we actually operate them. So we buy a business tied into our very complex operational matrix and generally make brands better as we move along. And our pace has picked up fairly significantly from the early days. So I'm on the founding team when it started with an idea sort of in a basement over a couple glasses of wine with a friend and former colleague of mine that led to four of us in an office that was adjacent to a Dunkin' Donuts dumpster, which was not the best place on earth. And then, slowly progressed into this really great foundational idea and structure that then from there we were able to get sort of parabolic growth. So we started with an idea of doing an e-commerce roll-up. Josh and Carlos had been musing about this for a few years. By the time I came along, we started to get signals that FBA was becoming a place that you probably really wanted to play. And the idea was that the operational structure of these businesses was much more similar than, let's say, running 75 or 50 or 25 traditional direct-to-consumer sites. There were a lot more sinews and synergies that existed in the FBA world. And so the idea basically came about this way, is that we could buy Amazon businesses and we could figure out ways to become experts in things that most sellers aren't experts in. And most of that is just on the aggregate, right? You get people who run a successful business, they build a great brand. They're generally good at a few things. When you're a 1 to 2 person operating crew, you're generally not good at all things, right? And so what we discovered was that businesses that had grown to about $1 million a year in sales and up, as opposed to getting more efficient, which would be your traditional sort of brick and mortar model, you figure out ways to get better supply chain relationships and so on and so forth. Businesses were getting less efficient. So it takes more to operate a business at a large scale than it does at a small scale. And a lot of people who are running these businesses were sort of holding on to the small scale mentality and not taking their brands to the next level. And then there was a real pressure point. And this is really where I think this market was built, is their businesses were scaling also super fast, right? So they were seeing this massive growth curve. Well, as a business operator, that can become very stressful when you were looking to make a couple extra grand a month selling staplers that you sourced, right? And then all of a sudden, in order to stay and keep up with your growth, you have to use your own money and put $500,000 down on a staple order to keep up with inventory. So what happened was this sort of convergence of business owners who had built successful things that were not fully optimized, and they really didn't know what to do next. And that's sort of when we entered the space, was a sort of a serendipitous time of these things coming together. A few people had fiddled around with the idea, perhaps unsuccessfully, and perhaps their ideas were a little bit more highfalutin than ours, which was we wanted to build a really sound operational system by meat and potato businesses that we know we could rely on for a long period of time. Spatulas is the prime example that we use. A spatula is going to be the same now as it's going to be in 50 years. And so we know if we buy an ASIN that has 10,000 reviews, that's probably a very stable asset. So while people were looking to build these exotic brands, we were looking to aggregate and operate maybe more sort of humble brands, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Love it. When did you, and by the way, you've given me the title for this. It's from Dunkin' Donuts dumpster to, and I'll fill in whatever the rest is.
Yeah.
So you started Thrasio what year?
We were really fiddling around the idea in 2017, but we really started operating 2018 at the very beginning.
Okay. And since then you've acquired roughly 100 brands, 100.
Yeah, I think we're at 105 now as of today.
Okay. So in the beginning, you and your three co-founders, did you raise money right from the get-go through your network and rely on kind of your track record in business to get these people's trust, or did you fund it yourselves originally?
A little bit of a hybrid, and Carlos and Josh really have run the fundraising efforts from day one. So both Carlos and Josh had exits previously and had managed very successful businesses in the past. So they were able to fund with some of their own money and some seed investors from people who they've worked with in the past. And we had our first thesis, which actually was wrong. We thought we would do is buy FBA businesses that had started out successful and for whatever reason had dipped down, and we were going to buy them and then bring them back up at the top.
Oh, you're going to do a turnaround play.
Totally. Yeah. We realize that's a very challenging thing. It's probably something we could do now on a regular basis, but in the early days, certainly a challenge. And, you get to learn that Amazon will sort of like, for lack of a better term, they'll sort of just like partition off certain ASINs that have not performed well over a long period of time, because it sends a signal to their algorithm that this product will not perform effectively. So it's really hard then to pull it out of that partition and bring it back into the sort of open and played in space. So we learned the hard way with our first brand, but our next 3 or 4 were really successful. And the 4th or 5th one ended up becoming a major hit for us and sort of the seminal brand for our initial story, which was a brand called Angry Orange. It was a single product ASIN run by a really nice guy named Adam, I forget the exact story. It was like his cousin-in-law was a chemist who had horses. He didn't like the smell of horse stalls, so he invented this sort of orange concentrate based product that he could use to clean the stalls. And Adam said, like, hey, do you mind if I try to sell some of this on Amazon? And his cousin-in-law sent him a tote to Ohio. He filled it by hand in his garage and built a $2 million a year business off of one product ASIN that had one listing photo and like what I would say is not the prettiest branding on earth. And we picked up the phone and talked to the broker who was dealing with that business. And I hung up the phone afterwards and I was like, we're buying this thing. It's like, can me if I'm wrong. I'm dying on this hill. This is a brand that we absolutely need to have. And, I got the bottle in the next day or two from Amazon and I put it up to Carlos's nose and I said, smell that. You know what that is? That's gold, Carlos. And I just knew that this thing was just not optimized. So we spent a few months going through 47 different to be exact label variations. And we came up with the idea of doing a sun-kissed orange bottle and started, which a pattern for us for product optimization was just what I call a thumb stopper, right? So you're scrolling and you see a sea of products and it just stops you in your tracks. And I was like, this bright orange bottle, I know it's a pain to source. We'll do that. And instantly when we made the change, the conversion rate on the unit session rate on that product doubled. And it's stayed that way ever since, once we optimized the creative and the branding. And from there, we took it to from a $2 million brand to, depending on when we run out of stock and stuff and run rates and stuff, can be $15 to $30 million in run rate now. So
for folks who are watching this, there's the bottle and the branding there.
Yes. So I like always on the hero image, I want things that are in your face and vibrant and make you just sort of pause in a sea of white. And that to me was the first step on like what I would say is a big hit. And then we really started.
Tell me about Snoop Dogg. I mean, come on, he's in the.
Oh, Snoop. Yeah, no. So Snoop, I have a friend of mine that I worked with well over a decade ago. I spent a couple years. NASCAR has like an NFL Films version of NASCAR. It's called NASCAR Media Group. And my buddy Mike had been at NFL Films prior to that. And he's like, come and work with me for a few years. So I did that. And now he is like, works for Snoop Dogg. Oh, wow. So middle of the pandemic, Snoop Dogg wasn't doing much. And, we talked to his management team and I was like, hey, you're sitting around. Why don't we try this out? And I just thought it would be fun to give it a whirl. And, it worked out great.
Yeah. Is that his dog?
That is his dog. Yes.
Oh, okay, cool. But that's actually right. So this product now is not just for horses. It's an odor eliminator. So if you've got a dog, then you've got odor issues. Okay.
Correct. Yeah. No, it was turned into really a general house pet focused brand.
Yeah. Yeah. Because more people have cats and dogs than horses. Real rocket science there.
That is correct. Yes.